So basically this is a response to the video that I just recently uploaded on why dads were important in making decisions on who the daughter dated and married in America. That used to be customary. Primarily, I would say it probably died in the boomer generation, where that was the standard before. To marry someone's daughter in America, or even to date, you had to court the woman through the dad. You had to get the dad's final approval. It was part of pop culture. It was I would say Judeo-Christian based. It was just part of culture in America. That was what you had to do in order to get, Betty Sue and Susan and Dorothy and Mary in the back seat of your Mustang, 67 Mustang. You had to get the dad's approval. You had to come over. You had to wow the dad. He's gonna ask you some questions. You work. What do you do? I play sports. I'm a football player at high school with your daughter. I play quarterback. I'm lettering right now for Michigan State. You had to give something to where the dad was wowed by you accomplishing something. You worked at the local Piggly Wiggly. You had to do something. The dad was just not gonna approve you to date her daughter. Now, yeah, the women sneak out their window and lie and say they going to go to their friend's house, but they really with their secret boyfriend's house. Yeah, they did that type of stuff. But the thing is that that was part of the culture. I would say you could just say it probably died in the 70s. I'll say by the 60s and 70s that started to die out. Basically, Gen X was the basically where it ended. Okay, Gen X. Some of the Gen Xers might have had that same type of situation, but most did not. It was rare. It was rare for you to go, meet someone's father, to go on a date. If you did meet the father, it was just like a high and by type of situation, and you introduce yourself and blah blah blah. It wasn't no like scrutiny where he's grilling you, asking a bunch of questions, that type of thing. But yeah, by the time Generation X came in, early 80s to actually late 1980 to 1960s was Gen X. It was pretty much dead. It was, by the time, I'm a late Gen Xer. By the time I was born, it was pretty much, that was no longer the standard. It was going into single mama revolution, and then teenage pregnancy revolution. See, I came up during the teenage pregnancy revolution, in basically mid 80s, 90s. So it was like basically the dad was not in the house. It was a few things. Basically, it just became the norm to have a baby by yourself. For women, get food stamps, get welfare. All of that kind of goes hand in hand. Then you got the crack era that basically killed off a lot of men, sent a lot of men to prison for quite a long time. That's partly the reason, at least in the black community primarily, where a lot of black dads were not in the household. Okay, so the thing is that where this comes into a part where I suggest something that, I mean, it's just a suggestion. It's most likely is not going to ever happen, as far as not in my lifetime. But what I suggest is it needs to be like something to where you basically, without the father in the household, you could pretty much forget it. Okay, that's the first thing right there. Without fathers in the household, without the male input in the household, you can pretty much forget it. Okay, you know, because what I'm saying, outside of having that dynamic in play where the father's in the household, I think we need to, let's just say for a perfect world that the fathers were in the household and the whole nuclear family was in play, and it was some type of rejuvenation towards a nuclear family with a mother, father, and children, right? There needs to be some type of rite of passage, in my opinion. And I've said this before on another channel that I had a long time ago. And the reason why I say that it needs to be a rite of passage, it needs to be a rite of passage because women, you know, they're having problems picking men. Obviously, the father knew who was, you know, the best person for their daughter. I mean, for most cases, I'm not gonna say it was 100%, but the fathers knew, okay, this guy, they could feel it in their soul. They can, you know, they have some type of discernment. You know, they ask a bunch of questions, kind of like a job interview. I've said this on my channel before. I've said this many times. The father was the finance manager, okay? He was the person that signed off on you qualifying for that car. Like, for example, you go to a car lot with a 350 credit score. You don't really have a job, right? You're unemployed. The most thing you gonna get is a business card and say, come back another time. You're not going to get a car. You don't qualify for a car, right? And you just don't get a car. You is always next month, always next year, but this time you're not going to get a car. Well, that's what the father was in the house. He was the finance manager on, you know, whose approval can, you know, to get his daughter. Okay, I'm not saying all women are like cars. I mean, I've had a video about that before, but it is a similar concept. But nonetheless, the father was like a finance manager. He had the final approval. He only would give approval to those that qualified. Well, women are not finance managers. I'll say some women, but most women are not. They're not finance managers when it comes to themselves. Women pretty much choose off of, you know, what they like as far as looks, the vibe of a dude and all that type of stuff. Whereas the dad don't care about your vibe. He don't care how you look if you don't have a job. You know, you've been in and out of juvenile or whatever. You've been to prison. You don't have a job. He doesn't care about your vibe. He don't care about how good you look, you know, and how you dress and everything like that, right? So it's like, it's little like stuff like that where women, they basically make their own selection, and it's terrible ratios as far as success. It is some women that are excellent at picking men, excellent at picking men. You know, but if I had to put a percentage on it, I would say it's about 20%, and I'm being generous, of women that do a good job at picking their men. The other 80%, they have, you know, they picked a guy and then it didn't work out. It worked out for a few years, you know, and then it pretty much fizzled out. Others, they pick somebody that's going upside their head, giving them a pumpkin head, swelling their face up, and, you know, going to jail on them, you know, not paying for, you know, support for their children, for their household, all of that type of stuff. And it came from a choice of, like I said, the bad choices. You know, I was feeling good for the weekend, and then, you know, I was vulnerable and my pussy was dripping. So that's how I became a single mom. Like, I mean, the thing is I understand animalistic nature. We're animals, okay? I have my self-made, you know, decisions based off of, you know, things that, you know, I felt were right, but I didn't make 100% of the right choice as far as, you know, my story is I wanted to have children because I thought I was old and I didn't really know about other ways that you can have children. And I ain't necessarily picked the best situation, but I picked the best situation to have children as far as mating. But you can just about mate with anybody. But I mean, the thing is I made my choice. But needless to say, you know, I'm definitely an active father. I mean, I'm actually going to go see my daughter right now. She's having a birthday. Now, the thing is that, you know, it is guys that can change up in a positive way, and they, you know, had problems, and then they, you know, changed up into a positive way. But usually, whoever that person is that you meet, all those red flags that you miss, those red flags become basically true. And you know, regardless if you want to avoid recognizing those red flags or not. And, you know, men pretty much, you know, they are who they are. If you know, choose one that's, you know, decent, you that's how they gonna be. But yeah, that's my thing. I mean, I think that, you know, in a perfect world, just kind of like an African tribe, you have the boys become of age, the girls become of age, they become young men and young women, and they have some type of rite of passage. The man has to go out and hunt, you know, in a woods by himself for a day or two, and bring back some, you know, food for the tribe, or, you know, live game or whatever. The woman has to, you know, go into some type of ritual herself. I mean, that's, you know, that's something that I think that, you know, is needed, because people, it's kind of like, what I'm saying is, you gotta have to like do some type of selection process where people are automatically selected. You know, in a tribal dynamic, couples are auto-selected by who's available and who completes rite of passage. You know what I'm saying? So it's like kind of like arranged marriage with the spice, where, you know, both parties are already qualified on them being, you know, having a right to reproduce and have some type of coupling, you know, whereas arranged marriage is just, you know, two families, you know, arranging, you know, two couples together. So, I mean, that's my take on it, you know, because I think, you know, when you get 18, 17, 19, and you know, it only gets worse when you get older, you know, you do want to have, you know, the natural urge to have intercourse is strong. It is not going to go away. And, you know, when you're even religious, you still want to have sex. So that's why people that are religious, they tend to marry at an early age, so they can, you know, live a life where they're not sinning. You know what I'm saying? So that's why they do that. But, you know, it's kind of like, I think that the whole rite of passage, or let's just say arranged marriage thing, it fulfills that void. So people don't, you know, go out in the world backwards. You know what I'm saying? So that's just my take on it. You know, it's, you know, whatever the case may be, I'll say this, and I'll talk more about this maybe in a longer live format, but in America, it's kind of like Rome, like anything goes. And a lot of times people can't handle that. It's rough for people to handle the whole anything goes concept, because when it comes to anything goes, men, if you made decisions that are terrible and it's costing you money, or it's not faring well for you, people just gonna laugh at you. Okay, you made your decision, you know, and you had your freedom to make that decision. Same thing goes for women. You make a bad decision, people, you know, women might feel, you know, sympathy for you to a certain degree. Men it might be some men that, you know, simps or whatever, that have some type of sympathy for you. You know, I won't even say simps. It would be just, you know, men that have some sympathy for your situation. But at the end of the day, you suffer financially, spiritually, mentally, physically from those decisions that you choose to, from people you choose to lay with. And you know, it's almost like you need a certain level of perfection when it comes to mate selection, and most people don't choose perfectly. You know, you know, people don't choose their couple or their relationships like they choose a car, which they should. You know, when you get a car, you check the tires, you check the hood, you check to see if the engine is good, you know, and you got to know how to do that. And it's like, you know, you trying to get a reliable car, you know, and I know I'm going back to people being cars and shit, but it's just a really good analogy. But I'll just say, you know, I think that people should be more of a perfectionist when it comes to mate selection. I definitely would say that I'm trying to definitely be more of a perfectionist if I ever go you know, down this road again. But yeah, you know, that's my take on it. You know what I'm saying? And you know, hopefully you make your best choice.